Okay, can I just check again? Someone just posted a yes or something in the chat. I'm presuming everybody can see my screen here. Super, thanks guys. Okay, much appreciated. Right, it's 3 o'clock. Let's start. Firstly, thank you all very much for joining me today. It's been a little while since doing a webinar, so very exciting. Right, so this is the Marketing Schools in a Post-Lockdown Era webinar. Let's jump straight in. Okay, so firstly, the agenda. We're going to start with an intro, but I just want to pre-intro, if you like, as to why we're here and why we're doing this. I think the last 18 months, 20 months, 10 years, whatever it may have been now, has been fascinating. We've all learned a lot. You know, you guys all, run businesses, work high up in businesses in the education sector as well. I'm sure you've all discovered amazing, interesting, frustrating things too. But from our side, we've been learning a lot from many, many different companies. There's lots and lots of education companies trust us to help launch them or help them to expand across into many more schools in the UK and overseas. So we've seen it from many angles, and we've sort of collated all that learning together and produced this webinar. So we just felt it's now a good time to share what we've learned over the last 18 months, but also what we can then do and what we've been doing with that learning. So we're going to start with an intro. This webinar will be about 30 minutes, 40 minutes long, something like that. If anyone has any questions, as you've seen, there is a chat box, please feel free to ask any questions in there. There's a couple of people in my team who will be in here or joining us. Chris will certainly be keeping an eye on things. So any comments, any questions you've got, whether about stuff I'm talking about or wider things, please feel free just to type them in there at any point. They will be noted and we'll come to them a little later towards the end. So we're going to look at the 6 biggest takeaways since lockdown from our perspective. We're then going to talk about looking ahead. So what can we do based on those takeaways? And then finally, we're going to finish with an Ask Me Anything session. So quick introduction. Who am I? Why can you trust me? I'm Brian, for anyone who doesn't know. I've got just over 13 years of experience in marketing to schools by running multiple education marketing agencies. I'm a guest speaker on all things marketing. I'm a digital marketer certified partner and mentor, and I've helped to generate many millions of pounds of sales for education suppliers. So basically, you're kind of in safe hands here. We kind of know what we're doing, let's put it that way. You can connect with me. My details are down at the bottom, but I'm sure you've got my email address. Please feel free to drop me an email at any time or find me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to connect. So let's jump in these 6 biggest takeaways. As I said earlier, you guys will no doubt have lots of things you've discovered, lots of things you've found, and there may be some of these that I reference as well. But I think it's sometimes good just to see that these are the things that we're seeing across the board from many, many different clients as the learnings, if you like, over the last 18 plus months. So we're going to start off with longer lead times. COVID hasn't gone away. As much as I'm sure we'd all like to say it's definitely gone away and life is easy and back to how it was, it certainly hasn't. We were very, very careful when we were creating the title of this webinar to not call this in a post-COVID era. We have seen this a lot with many, many brands, not just in the education sector, but many brands talking about post-COVID, which will be wonderful, but we're not quite there yet. Longer lead times because, look, education sector, anyone who thinks lead times are fast in the education sector, I'd love to speak to you and know what you're doing, because they're just not. It takes a long time to get someone to move from somewhat interested in your product to going, hey, actually, I'll buy this. Well, what we've seen and what our clients have seen is that lead time is taking longer. There's unpredictable staff absences, meaning decision making, is demos, free trials. It's just the attention's all over the place. So key thing here is factoring in longer lead times. Those nurture series that you send out need to be a little lengthier, basically. 1 million free trials, number 2. So when lockdown first kicked in, companies all over the place are pushing out free trials. I mean, we saw one spreadsheet that was referencing other spreadsheets about free trials. So there was just thousands upon thousands of companies saying, you can use our thing for free, you can use it for free, which is wonderful. And do these million free trials, but they didn't turn into a million sales. There are several reasons for this, but one of the biggest things we learned is that it exposed a real weakness in many companies' onboarding process that really affected the conversions. What lots of companies found were they were increasing bandwidths on servers to meet the demand of all these schools that were asking for trials, but the usage immediately dropped. Like, people weren't using it for a month on end. They were using it for a couple of days and then not using the platforms in general. And it really highlighted there's a problem with the onboarding process. Now, we're going to talk more about onboarding and all of these sections. I don't even know what that means. We're going to be talking about onboarding and more of the other sections in this a little later on as well. But a few takeaways here. Email nurture series, we've been experimenting with this thing called a Viper model, where in your nurture series, so that's when people have come in saying, hey, I want a trial, or I'm interested in this thing, and you're then communicating them typically through email. Using this Viper model where you're checking, do your emails provide value? Are they insightful? Are they personalized? Are they educational? And is there a referral in place there? So are we using, you can give referral in two ways. Are we talking about other teachers and other schools and how they're using our platform to encourage that other people use it, you're in safe hands? Or are we actually even including, things as obvious ways of sharing this email around, if it's something useful to say, for your head teacher and so on? Big takeaway here is treat any free trial prospects like you would a new customer. Avoid the, here's your login, see you around, I'll call you in 30 days, see if you're going to buy experience. If you just move even 2 degrees away from that, you're doing so much better than many, many, many companies in this sector. The way that companies win in this sector when they're talking about onboarding, by the way, is because they understand the whole customer value journey. We can talk about another point, but it's where we're looking at not just saying how do we bring in leads, but they're saying how do we bring in leads, or how do we make awareness, and then how does that awareness turn into excitement and into a lead? How does that lead turn into someone who tries our platform, gets really excited about the idea of having that platform in their school? How does that turn into a purchase? How does that person turn into a brand advocate so they promote it elsewhere? When you see the whole picture of a business, that's how you win, and that's super key for your onboarding. Kindness and patience is needed. There's a really sad stat that we saw just literally the other day. 3 in 4 heads have said they've seen their staff in tears this term. That's from the TES. Yeah, it's pretty awful. We know that this sector is super stressful and has, many problems in staff retention and staff recruitment and all the rest that go alongside that. It's gotten worse. So I think one of the key takeaways here is not to add to teachers' anxiety with overly pushy sales messages and phone calls, but to lead into kindness and patience in your lead nurturing. I don't want to think I'm saying don't try and sell, or don't send any sales messages, or don't phone call people. What I'm saying is it's around making sure the language that we're using, this is certainly something we've really focused on over the last sort of 12, 18 months with our clients, making sure that language is considered, is emotive. It says, I understand what you're going through, teacher, and we are looking for a sale, but we recognize from point 1 that this process is going to take longer. The rise of social, number 4. I always loved it in the past when people would say things like, oh, but teachers don't use social media, or teachers aren't on Facebook, or schools don't use YouTube and stuff. And I thought it was fantastic, because I was like, then you keep not advertising and putting content into the place where our clients get the highest ROI. But teachers are now more comfortable than ever with digital. We and our clients have seen a significant rise in engagement with social advertising. So that means more people are seeing the ads, more people are interacting with the ads, clicking, liking, sharing, commenting, and so on, which is hugely, hugely beneficial when you're trying to put your product in front of these people. Number 5, outside sales. We love video. There's going to be a lot of talk about video a little later on, but video based product demos by real people is super, super valuable. So, a couple things here. One, we really recommend building a Loom library. Loom is just a platform where you can do screen recordings and videos, by the way. There's loads of other tools out there. We just happen to use Loom. Loom library that stars your best customer support staff so that teachers get buy-in outside of the sales process. Your customer support people are some of the best salespeople you possibly have. They're the ones who hear the problems. They're the ones who are trying to fix the problems. They're the ones who are often ex-teachers and all the like. Put them front and center with a Loom library that gives product demos where people can explore in their own time. You can also, and this is a big thing that we've been doing, and the screenshot to the right-hand side there, something that Chris did, a live version of this, is create personalized videos. Where we're saying, you can see at the top right, hey, Brian, I've done you a quick Loom to show you how such and such works. Imagine sending that to one of your prospects. Imagine a prospect says, oh, I don't know where so-and-so is. And you reply with a video. It's like, hey, Mr. Jones, no problem at all. I thought it was easier to record this quick thing for you. Check it out. That's so much more engaging, so much more personalized than just a link to an FAQ, just a written response answer. So big advocates here of this, because ultimately what it means is that final point, teachers get to know your team. You know, COVID and lockdowns have exposed so much of real life. You know, look, I'm in my home office, I'm in my house. I'm no longer in my office in London, though it's still there and the rest of it. And occasionally, not yet, thank God, my kids will run in and climb across the back dressed as princesses and Buzz Lightyear and all the rest of it. And people have been exposed to be true life, real people. And that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And we should embrace that. And using things like Loom enables you to put people front and center of your business. Finally, before we come on to, so what do we do with this? Webinars work. Yeah, look, increased remote learning adoption over the last few months has meant there's much greater comfort with video-based materials and live streams. We're going to come into some very specific stats around webinars, but webinars are a real powerful way of getting your brand out there. So, in summary, there's two types of changes here that we're talking about. There's attitudinal changes and there's behavioral changes. The attitudinal changes to put in place are understand that there's always been a long lead time in this sector. It just got longer. Understand that better onboarding and more effective, consistent nurture processes are needed. It's very rare that we've ever spoken to a company and looked at their onboarding process and gone, holy crap, that's awesome. And I'd love you guys to just think about your onboarding process and what happens from the very first moment someone asks for a trial. And I use that as a for instance, or basically starts to engage with your platform. What happens at that point on? Because psychologically what happens is the time someone says, I want to trial this thing, is when they are the most excited about your product they've ever been. Sadly, 99% of times, that excitement level just starts to dip at that point onwards. And you need it to stay there and even bump up a notch to say, I like this so much, I'm going to buy. So think about your onboarding. Don't add to teachers' anxiety, but lean into kindness, generosity, and patience. Then we have the behavioral changes, where we're saying, embrace and invest in social and paid acquisition. It worked before, it's working even better now. Create personalized, short, video-based product demos by real live people. And know that teachers have a greater comfort with webinar-style outreach and live streams now than before. So looking ahead, second. I think it's always worthwhile talking about, what have we learned over the last few months, and, what would we have changed and what worked well and so on. But it's kind of pointless if you don't say, so what do I put in place right now? That's what this whole section is about. So look, if you are thinking about making notes in this presentation, and we will send the presentation through to you guys as well, but if you are thinking about making notes, Now's the time to get your pens out and to start writing, because this is what to do, because we've been doing this stuff and it's working. So newsletters. I'm going to give you some stats. The Be Digital newsletter, Be Digital newsletter, it gets around 65 to 70% open rate with a 40% click-through rate. Now, we're in early days with our Turn Attention into Trust newsletter. If you haven't signed up to that, I highly recommend it. I am a little bit biased, but it is superb. And I'll give you the link to that later. But what does it actually mean? Well, let's look at one of our clients. One of our clients' newsletters, over about a 7-month period, something like that, last 7 or 8 months or so, has generated just shy of £1 million worth of leads. They know it takes about 8 to 12 emails in order to convert these people from the newsletter into buying schools. What this has meant ultimately is they've tripled their business last year, tripled their business. About 90% of their sales come from their newsletter. It's phenomenal. Why is this working? Their newsletter is super high. We talk about putting your best foot forward first, always. And their newsletter is really high value to a very specific group of people. It's very clear if you're in the newsletter that this newsletter is for you. And it's fantastic. And you can see the numbers and what it's doing there. And that's just one. We could have picked out several. So here's my advice. Firstly, start creating a newsletter. Don't jump into this. It's going to take time to figure out. I think for our Turn Attention into Trust newsletter, Chris will be able to correct me if I'm wrong here in the chat. It probably took us 3 months or so to work out exactly how we were going to do this and all the rest of it. So it does take time to figure out, but start on this. I'd say don't make your newsletter about your product and your company. No one cares. Hashtag sorry, not sorry. Like, no one cares. The people who kind of care about your company, I mean, they're your customers and they want to know that you're surviving and new stuff's happening and there's new products or new features and stuff. And that's cool, but you're probably already doing that. But we're not talking about necessarily just emailing your customers here. We're talking about producing a newsletter that people can subscribe to because it's super high value. It's very rare. That's because it's stuff about your company. The newsletter isn't about news. It's about value, value, value. We recommend that you link to external sources. Reference the real world. Here's a thing that's going on. We thought it'd be relevant to you. Be creative, use storytelling. This is one of my big bugbears in this sector. A lot of people in this sector think that, it's education, it's very serious. We have to be very, very serious, very specific, and we need to, speak very properly. And dear sir, dear ma'am, it's so not true. I sent an email out a little while ago in our Take newsletter talking about like a real great tip for getting better engagement with your emails. Write how you speak. It's really kind of basic stuff here, but write how you speak. I'm not saying throw F-bombs around and all the rest of it, but be creative, use personalization, ditch that corporate speech, and use storytelling as a method of actually entertaining and engaging people. Thing to remember about emails in general, the subject line, the only purpose of that subject line is to generate an open. The purpose of the content within, and that value, is to generate the click. And regularity and frequency generates the lead. With so much that I'm going to talk about today, it's about being consistent, consistently present doing the thing. A friend of mine, a slightly different story, a friend of mine is an international sales trainer for software products. And he decided maybe 2 years ago or so to produce a video a day on LinkedIn. Some of them were a minute long, some of them were 15 minutes long. And it took months and months and months of him doing this and getting no comments, no likes, no shares. And, you get one 3 months later and it's your mom, you think, oh, great, thanks, Mom, I'm glad you saw my video. But lo and behold, he ends up with a 7-figure contract from people who've gone, we've seen these videos. Consistency is absolutely key with all of these things. So there's newsletters. Traffic building adverts. Okay, so if you're new to digital advertising, this is going to be even newer. If you have done digital advertising before, I still don't think you'll have tried this. So let me explain what we're talking about here. Typical advert online is what we think about is, here is an ad, I click it and I go and buy the shoes or whatever it may be. Or here's an ad, I click it and I go to a company's website and I take a trial. That's fine. What we're talking about here is running adverts with the sole purpose of just generating traffic and building a list of people that is your target audience that you can then run more targeted, specific, come buy from me adverts to. An example of this is a Valentine's Day campaign that we ran. So we ran a Valentine's Day campaign that was a video. We do love videos, and videos are the best way of doing this, by the way. These are videos, I think just created in Canva, but it's just a video that we produced. And it was basically saying, hey, teachers, we're sharing the love to all teachers on Valentine's Day. It was just a video. It was like, there's literally nothing more to it. You could click it and just open the video up bigger, but it wouldn't do anything. You couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't buy anything. And that was the purpose. What this meant, though, was by producing this video and run it as an ad, we ended up with 44,720 people that engaged with this video that we could then target with more specific stuff. It cost £175 for the clients to do this. And that acquisition cost is just less than half a penny, I think that is. My maths isn't very good at all. It's just less than half a penny per person watching this video, interacting with it, who get a feel-good factor about the brand. Like, that's kind of cool. I kind of like that. No one else does that. Again, personalization. Again, stop the corporate crap. Do something just real world. It's Valentine's Day. You know what? Teachers sharing love with you. You might think it's corny. Well, yeah, £175, 44,000 people. My advice, adverts don't always need to result in leads right away. Remember what we said earlier, lead times are longer. So how can we help work with that? Produce ads aren't about getting leads then. Use paid acquisition with the goal of just engagement and build a list that is highly engaged in your platform, because the ads are highly engaging. They call out your demographics, like, hey, science teachers, like, go that specific. They're super visually appealing. So again, video wins hands down all the time with this kind of ad. You can then retarget those engaged viewers with a follow-up advert that asks for a micro commitment. It's exactly what we did with Valentine's campaign. Everyone who'd seen the sharing love video, they were then retargeted with, hey teachers, here's a really cool thing you could do. Here's a great download. Here's a great app thing. Go and try our platform, etc. So the first one is about building an audience that becomes hyper-targeted that you can then retarget later on. We mentioned about webinars. Webinars work. Key takeaway, one of our clients' webinars that they ran, I think about a month or so ago, they had 320 attendees turn up to it. They actually had to increase they did it on Zoom, they had to increase their allowance on Zoom several times to facilitate the full amount of people getting through, which was phenomenal. Again, why was that? And then lots of these people actually are converting into customers, just to be clear. But why was this so successful? They were very specific about what the webinar was about, and they were very specific as to who it was going to. You're these people, here's this problem, pull them together through a webinar. Big tip before I go into my advice, if you're going to do a webinar, make it be a webinar. Don't say you're running a webinar if what you're actually doing is a product demo. Just say I'm running a product demo. You will get fewer people turning up, but they're not going to be as pissed off when they've signed up for one thing and you deliver something else. I see it several times. I don't like it. Please be very, very careful of that. Run webinars, value first, allow the people to say, I like these guys, I want to work with them. They clearly know the run-ins. I said that once to an American client. They're like, what the hell did you just say then? But anyway, so my advice, everyone uses Zoom. Zoom's great, Zoom works well, but MS Teams is a common choice in schools. So it's one just to think about. We don't use that. We typically use Zoom, or as you can see today, clients have used either or. My preference is Zoom, and it's certainly much more acceptable now, again, post-lockdown than it was pre-lockdown, because now every school's used Zoom at some way, shape, or form. Recordings are great to share. I know I've skipped one here, but provide some sort of offer or code or discount for those that stay on to the end, that people not watching in live won't get access to. So if you're watching my webinar going, oh, cool, I'm going to like borrow Brian's webinar and actually use this as a sales webinar, don't. My webinar that we've done today is not actually about converting people. It's about us, yes, we're putting our best value forward and saying, hey, here's some stuff I want you to learn. I think it really help you. And yes, it'd be wonderful if you guys go, hey, we might want to work with you guys. Well, the structure we're doing is not a sales webinar. We're doing a full value and that's it webinar. There are reasons for that. But if I was doing a sales webinar for clients, you know, in the very beginning, when I said, here's the agenda and what we're going to go through, the last point is, and at the very end, I've got something very, very special for you, but you must stay on to the end to see it. Anyone who watches the recording, I'm afraid you won't get access to that. It's just for you guys who are live, and stay on to the end. That is a really great way of bringing people on and making sure they stay to the end. But make sure you give them something good at the end. So some sort of offer, some sort of code, some sort of discount, well worth it. Just bumping back up a step there, I sort of glossed over it a little earlier anyway. Offer an insight and a solution to a very specific problem, to a very specific person. Don't try doing webinars that cover everything under the sky. It's not going to work. Take one problem. We're going to delve deep into that one problem for these specific people. It's always going to be much, much better that way. Understand that a typical show rate on a webinar is about 40%. Don't feel downhearted if 100 people sign up and 30 turn up. It's pretty normal, I'm afraid. That just seems to happen a lot when you're running webinars as a company, pushing webinars out. That is typical. Just if that makes anyone go, oh, that's better than we thought, you know, makes us feel better about things we've run before. That's what I would expect when we're running them. Linked to this, virtual events. I have to thank Damien and Mike from Nexus. I asked about some stats here and said, I don't know if you guys can help with something here. Some interesting takeaways here. When we're talking about virtual events, actually, just to pause for a minute, what do we mean by this? In essence, it's kind of a webinar, but what we're saying is an event where you have on the one side, companies, you guys, on the other side, schools, and they mix. Usually, because what happens is, company provides, demonstrates a Curtis, I've just seen your message. I will tell you that at the end. We see company presents solution to schools that are there to watch about these solutions. Why are these virtual events, or some of them, working very well? Again, because they are really, really specific. So what they're saying is, schools, if you have a problem with, I don't know, disengaged readers, for instance, then we're running an event with 5 companies that are all have products that are about, engaging disengaged readers. Your turn-up rate is much higher, as you've seen, average around 10% dropout rate from the schools versus, up to 30, 40, 50% for a real-world event. And because of that specificity, so they turn up is much, much higher. So some advice here. Anyone who's seen any of our videos and things in the past know that I'm a little dubious about digital as well as, real world events and all the rest. So here's the questions that I would ask, and that I actually get, and our account managers ask on behalf of our clients when they're pitched the idea of going to events. How many people are coming? Obvious question, but ask it. See if they'll put in a dot in and go, there's 100 people signed up. Great. How many are going to turn up based on previous experience? What are their roles? What do these people do who are turning up? Why are they coming? This is a really interesting question. Why are they coming? What has enticed this audience specifically to this event? So for instance, they're coming because there's a keynote speaker at the beginning who's, super world famous. All right, so why will they care about my product? What qualification process is in place to accept that audience? So is it just anyone, or do they have to put at least a school name, an email address, something like that in there? Are there any guarantees in place? And please, hold the organizers to account. If you don't get what you're expecting, do ask, do explain, do say, this is what happened, this is what I'm worried about, what's going to happen now. We ask the same as an agency. If we're not performing, please hold us to account and say, we expect something else. This is what we were hoping for. Video, as if I've not mentioned it enough, video wins. It's also kind of hard to do, most people think. Let me just give you some stats. 1/3 of all the time spent online is spent watching videos. Stat from WordStream. 1/3 of all time. So we are playing into typical behaviors of our audience. And please don't think, yes, well, this isn't teachers. Teachers, it's the job. It's what they do. They are real life human beings with wives and husbands and partners and children and home life and stresses and loves and hates and all the rest that go with it, a third of people, a third of time spent online is spent watching videos. 75% of viewers prefer vertical over horizontal video. Caveat, when watching it on mobile. What does that mean is that people tend to hold their phone like this when scrolling through Facebook and all the rest of it, and they'd rather see a video that size rather than turning the phone this way and watching it as a more standard video. This is why everyone's ever asked me in the past, like, how do I record some video? I want to do an ad. I always say to them, film it this way. Do a selfie, film this way. It feels weird because you feel like you should always do it this way. Film it this way. Big reason is when you launch an ad or just a video that's filmed vertically, it takes up much more of the real estate on the screen. So a horizontal ad takes up about a third of the screen. A vertical ad will take up usually about 2/3 of the screen. So you get, boom, there's Brian's ugly face screaming something at me, but it grabs the attention. Video posts on social media get 48% more views than image posts. Again, video is the way. So here's some advice. Perfect is the enemy of good. I use this quite a lot and talk about it quite a lot. That I've referenced it with emails before. I said I've seen some of the world's greatest email campaigns that have yet to be hit send, because the people are always tweaking it. Get it good enough and launch it, because let me tell you, no one else in the sector is doing video. We know they're not doing videos. So if you're running some videos, if they're good enough, that's great. Run with it. It will never be perfect unless you're going to hire a big TV film production crew, spend tens, hundreds of thousands on all your videos. You don't need to. 10 to 30-second videos are crushing it right now. And again, nobody in the audience, in our industry, is creating them. There's another stat I saw actually the other day that said, basically, videos up to 2 minutes are on the money, and a lot of people will watch up to 2 minutes. The moment it goes beyond 2 minutes, there is a significant drop off. However, if people watch 6 minutes of a video, they're almost entirely certain to stay to the end of your video, unless it's like a 3-hour epic. So there's 2 minutes and 6 minutes that are key. Up to 2 minutes, it's fine. If people stay from 6 minutes onwards, track them, speak to them, reach out to them. 6 minutes, magic number. But 10 to 30-second videos are crushing it. Why? Because we live in this TikTok, Instagram story era where everything is 10, 15, 30 seconds. So we're just playing into people's expectations. Consistency is key. It's what I said earlier. Seeing results will take time. Yeah, with anything that are these, you're not going to launch a newsletter today and then produce £980,000 worth of sales qualified leads tomorrow. It just won't happen. Consistency is key. With anything you're doing on these things, you've got to plan ahead and say, we're going to do it. We're going to do it for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, whatever it is. And we're going to do it and stick by it. Longer interactive videos are going to be the next big thing for onboarding and lead gen. That's my big Mystic Meg prediction here. Interactive videos will be the big thing for onboarding and lead generation. I won't go into it too much, but think of that as being, the stories you used to get when I was a kid, you're standing at a cave. Do you go inside the cave, go to page 10, or do you, run to the hills, go to page 50? Interactive sort of stories. Well, imagine that on a video basis where you're watching a video and it's what do you do next? I think, was it on Netflix, or was it Bandersnatch? I think it was. So that, but in the education sector, that's going to be the next big thing. There's my prediction. Okay, so that's the big takeaways that we've had from the last sort of 18 plus months. I'm sure many of those are going, yeah, we understand, we sort of expect those, but hopefully it's good to know that you're not alone. There are many, many people that are seeing this, because we see it from dozens of companies' perspectives. And there's the things that what to do next. But I'm a big believer in doing these things. We don't just talk about, here's something really cool. All the things that we're talking about there, we do for ourselves and we then do for clients. The Choose Your Own Adventure interactive videos, we've done for ourselves, we've done for clients. We are currently doing for clients as well. So all of those things are big. And so I'm going to roll into now this Ask Me Anything section. And there's a little thing at the end as well. So we had some really cool questions being asked on, when you sign up, you could pop a question in there. We had some really fascinating questions being asked, and thank you, Chris, for condensing them into themes, if you like, and there were clear themes, which is really fascinating for us. It sort of helped us to understand, well, I wonder what we should do next and what people really need support with. So let me just go through some of these. We had quite a few questions around, is Facebook, is LinkedIn, is YouTube a good place to market to teachers? How do you reach educators in such and such a space, in the science space, the senior leadership team space, or whatever else it may be? What I would say with this is possibly, yes. And the reason I say possibly is because I'd say what you want to do, my biggest advice to you, and this is something that everyone should do, it's what we do with our clients, and we do it every sort of 3 to 6 months, we assess it, is produce some customer personas for your customers, where you want to think about and write these things down and do it as a team, and get your salespeople, if you have them, get your customer support staff, if you have them, go digging, speak to your friends who are teachers, if you have them, speak to these people and say, who's our typical customer? Like, give them a name. Who is it? How old are they? Where do they work? What books are they reading? Where are they hanging out? What's their life look like? Why do they get up in the mornings and go to school? Why do they not sleep at night? What is their big aspiration? What do they see themselves in the next 3 to 5 years? What's their big worry that might happen to them in the next 3 to 5 years, that everything goes downhill? Because I think if you start to understand your audience as people who are teachers as part of their life, it gives you a better understanding as to where they're hanging out, and start digging around. Because the reality is, teachers are on Facebook. So yes, it's a very good channel to reach out to them. Senior leaders, certainly over in the US side, as well in the UK, depending, are on LinkedIn. And it can also be a very, very good channel to reach out to them. YouTube, an amazing channel to reach out to them, because no one's advertising on YouTube in this sector. And guess where every damn teacher goes when they're looking for certain content? So I think it's the second biggest search engine in the world, isn't it? So the answer is, to all of those things, probably. But the question is, do you know your audience? Have you researched them as to where they're hanging out, where they're having conversations, not just when they're in teacher mode, but when they're relaxed and at home, where are they hanging out? And then that's the first protocol. Then to think about, now, what message am I going to use? Do I use paid acquisition? Have I got Sales Navigator on LinkedIn? Am I going to message? Am I going to do ads? Don't worry about that. Start with, who is my audience? We had a lot of questions about email marketing. I've been misquoted a few times about being a guy who hates email marketing. I love email marketing. I absolutely adore it. Most of the content that goes out on behalf of our clients to their prospects, and indeed our content to our prospects, is through email. I love email marketing. However, I like email marketing with people that want to hear from you and that know you. That's the email marketing I like. So email, is it still a valid way to reach schools and teachers? I would say yes, when you own that data. I don't mean when you've purchased the data. I don't mean when you're borrowing the data. I mean when you have owned that data. Again, it's a previous Tate newsletter. We talk about the 3 different audience types. There's like an audience that you sort of don't control. So that's people who come to you via things like they're sort of searching online and stuff. So the word of mouth and the likes, they'll just sort of come across you, and you can't really control that. And there's audience that you kind of can control, which is like putting ads directly in front of that audience. Like, here's a thing, come and click. You have much more control over that. And then there is an audience that you own. So that's an audience that they've actually signed up to something. They're on your email list or whatever it may be. That's your audience, and you can do stuff. That's the most powerful audience. The first 2 audiences, the goal of them should always be to build that third owned audience. So what you want to be really saying is, it's not about, does email work? Yeah, 100%. And also know that teachers get like 120 to 150 emails a day and stuff, and their inboxes are crazy full. But it works if you own that email list. If they know you, if they like you, if they want to hear from you, absolutely it does. How do you get teachers to read your emails? Again, it's sort of, these are all kind of linked, so you see why we sort of built them together here. You get them to read them by giving them something they want to hear. So typically what we would be doing is we'd start with running some ads or something that builds awareness, says, hey, we exist. And then we offer something like a really high quality download or a guide or a brochure or something or other that they sign up for. And they can opt in or opt out of email communications after that point. But then we give them super shit hot quality emails that's value first. So they go, this is good. This is good content. I like this stuff. We also ask them to whitelist us. We tell them how to do this. We also have really good subject lines in our emails. There are multiple types of subject lines you can produce. And you don't want to sort of always go down this curiosity one. But again, the subject line is what gets them to open them. The content within is what gets them to read. But that consistency is what actually generates the leads over time. Are teachers too busy to read emails? Aren't we all? Yeah, we're all too busy to read emails. I have an assistant who goes through all of my emails and filters things out and then hands me the ones that I need to read. But you know what she also does? She has a list of the things that I really like. She has a list of the emails that I definitely want to see. And I'll make time to read those things because we're all busy. But yes, they're busy. No, they're not too busy to read emails that provide high quality, super high value. And we see it because we see it for our clients. Cadence, how do you balance frequency of messaging against teacher fatigue and feeling overwhelmed? Whoa, that's a good question. Let me put it this way. And I think that's typically talking about email again in terms of the frequency of messaging probably being email, because phone, most people tend to only do it every now and again, to be totally honest. So I'm going to use it via email, but what I'm about to say is relevant right across the board. I have never had a client where we've said to them, you're emailing too much. Usually what happens is clients are worried that they're sending too many emails. They're usually sending too few. So it's lovely that people are wondering about frequency of messaging. Remember what I said earlier about sales push. Messaging frequently is fine, but don't message with buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff. They think it's great, buy my stuff. Don't do that. But you're absolutely fine to frequently message once a week or even more frequently than that if the value is there. And it's about that consistency and that persistency, saying, I know this is going to take time. I know you're not going to buy from us immediately. That's totally cool. But we're here anyway. And we're going to be consistently giving you high value. So the other thing to do is listen to your list. You see what's happening. If you're getting drop-off rates, you need to change things. If that, the open rates dip, if you get an unsubscribed, it needs to dip. But use the unsubscribe and the open rate as a measure of success with something like this. People are still opening. That's great. Typically in the sector, most companies are looking to try and get about 20% open rate. So if you're somewhere near 20% and that's kind of consistent through, you're doing okay. Live events. Are in real life events worth the time in a post-lockdown era? Honestly, I have no idea. I think it's too early to say. I'd love to say, yes, go and splash your cash on this thing, or no, don't. Fact is, we're a digital agency. So although we've helped people with events when they've already decided they're going to them, the reality is basically everything we do is digital and digital ways of getting in front of people. And we love that because you have so much more control. I can run ads today that get results tonight, that pull in people into an email list or into a database where we're doing more stuff with them and retarget and get phone numbers. I love the power that you have with digital. If something's working, you scale it overnight. Something's not working, you turn it off and try something else. So we're not really the best place people to talk about things like live events, to be totally honest. I don't know, it's too early to say. Money, how do we respond to we have no money from schools? That's always been the case. Like from when I first started doing this 13, 14 years ago, something like that, yeah, we love it, we just haven't got any money. It's the default answer. Now, let me just clarify something here. Schools have been stripped for many years of cash, absolutely. Their ability to just buy a shed load of stuff just doesn't exist. They can't just buy a load of stuff and test it. So there's my caveat to this. However, we have no money is the easy fallback, okay? I love it, it's great, we just haven't got money. That makes me feel fine to say I can't buy for you. It's not my fault, we have no money. And you can't argue that because we have no money. However, schools are buying stuff. They are cancelling products to buy other products. I see it. We see it daily. They are finding money when they see the value. So what I would say is, if you're getting the "we have no money" question, I would actually be looking at this as, how have I positioned my product? Is it actually resonating with them? Because "we have no money" really means I don't see enough value in your products for me to go and bin something else and to replace it with yours. That doesn't necessarily mean your product's no good. It means your positioning needs work. So again, best advice is go back to who your audience is, why they get up, why they get up and go to work, what keeps them in the sector, what things they hate, how your product maps that, and look at that. We have something called a messaging canvas where we look at people's before state, their after state, how to position things so they go, holy crap, I get it, and this is exactly what I need. You're like the knight in shining armor that's going to fix a thing. So no money is, I don't see the value, to be totally blunt about this. Yes, so that's the long and short of it with that one. I'm afraid. What this has done, by the way, and I love this. Actually, another quick tip on email, by the way. We talked about open rates and click-throughs and all the rest. One thing that I always find funny is a lot of email marketing companies talk about success as being opens and clicks. Email's a communication platform. The purpose of email is to enter or continue a conversation. Really, the measure of success with email is people replying. So one thing that's really cool to do with your email, and ask yourself first, is, wait, with these emails we've sent out, have we ever asked anyone anything other than, do you want to try my product you're going to buy? Have you ever asked them anything? Have you ever asked them what they want? Have you ever said to them, look, we've not heard from you in a little while. Do you not want our products? That's totally cool, but it'd be really cool for us just to know where we're at with stuff. Like if people, hey, we're planning on doing a webinar and we're an expert in disengaged reading. There's 5 topics here. Which one would you want us to do one on? Like, ask stuff, because that's how you get real high value here. And, we asked you guys, tell us what you want, tell us what the questions are. And there were so many around email, positioning, and really the audience, so email and positioning together, that we're now going, I think we need to do another webinar where we dive deep into either emails and how to do emails that get opens and get clicks and get replies and all the rest, or positioning. So it's likely that we'll probably email you guys going, what do you want next? And we'll ask you, and we will use that to support and guide us going forward. Okay, so I'm going to open up again in a second we've got another 10 minutes. So for any more questions that have come through, and I think Chris you can gather anything or ping them through or anything to me, that would be wonderful. So what to do next? Again, please don't come to webinars and don't do anything. It's just such a waste of time. Like, of course, we'd like you guys to give us a shout and say, hey, we might want to work with you guys, but do something, okay? Any webinar you go to, if you don't do something, if you read a book and you don't do something, it doesn't change you in some small way, it's just such a shame, such a missed opportunity. So look, there's a lot of stuff we've gone through and we've skimmed the surface on them. Just take one tip from the webinar and implement it. Just one thing. Don't do all of them. Do one thing and do it well. I put a little note there that patience plus consistency is success. So just take one thing, be patient with it, but be consistent. That's what will get success. 2, if you are looking for support into growing out into the sector, either expanding in the sector or you're starting out and look to say, what do I do from this point? Book a growth strategy call. The link is on there. It's not the one that's on the website. It's a different link. Go to this link. You can book a strategy call. You'll speak to either me or someone else in the team who will work with you and support you into what you should be doing next, where you could go, tips, advice, strategy. And that may be part of it is going, well, we can explain how we can work with you, but we may not be right for you either. So book a growth strategy call if you're looking for ways of using support to get further into the school sector. Finally, if you've not yet, please sign up to our newsletter, Turn Attention into Trust. It is awesome. I can say that because I write it, but my team are amazing at pulling much more stuff and content together and helping us with it. So if anyone doesn't know, the Take newsletter was something that I was sending out to our team internally for a while, where it was musings of stories of things that happened and things that I've read in books and really, really great adverts and things that I like, just stuff that I like and think is fascinating and useful and just makes you stop and think, with a little bit of marketing to school strategy thrown in the mix. And we're doing it for a few months, and then some of the team suggested that we actually pop it out to the wider people, which I wasn't 100% sure about, but we've done it. And we've had some really lovely feedback. So thank you as well for everyone who's emailed us about the newsletter. If you haven't signed up to that, please do sign up to our Turn Attention into Trust newsletter if you haven't already. That is the end of that presentation. I'm going to stop my share so I can actually come back for a moment. And I'm just bringing Chris. I've just given you the ability to be unmuted. I don't know if that's useful at all. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm very well. Good, yeah, good stuff, Brian. Good,
thank you. So, I don't know if did you capture any? Were there any interesting questions or anything that's come through? By the way, if anyone's got any questions now, please feel free just to put them into the chat box. You can tell about the digital marketing. My instinct is always to say chat bots. Put them in the chat bots, not chat bot. Chat bots are amazing, by the way, but put them into the chat box and we can go from there. Chris, are there any particular questions that you've seen?
We should have built an automated chat bot, and then I could have gone off and had a cup of tea and left it do it. That would have been good. Yeah, I mean, people were talking about the value versus funding question, which is interesting. That value is really what you're selling. I put a little note about if you're selling tools like, you know, assessment platforms or PE equipment or, you know, anything like that, where there is probably product in the school that schools are using, then you're selling change, not necessarily selling features and product. That's really worth noting, that actually what you're getting people to do is, and teachers are notoriously better the devil you know. So if you can create a value proposition that talks about their future existence 6 to 12 months ahead of when they take your product on, what does that look like? And the fact that you have to be 10 times kind of better. It's not enough to be a little better or offer a slightly different feature set. You know, it has to be a lot stronger to convince a senior management team to shift from your MIS to from the one they've already got and have embedded and have been using for 15 years. So, you know, that's something to consider. Also, some interesting comments about, you know, interest in interactive video. You know, there's a lot of marketing media that goes around that's proven, like email, social media, community building, that kind of thing. But equally, kind of, how do you stand out in a crowded space where everything is shouting at teachers, you know, all day long? How do you stand out? And interactivity is one of those things. And I don't mean like augmented reality and virtual this, that, and the other, just a situation where someone who's keen on looking into what you do, if you can give them a way to take small steps towards your proposition. And an interactive video, choose your own adventure thing, just works so beautifully for that if you get it right, if you get the script right. And as you've shown, Brian, you can do it on your mobile phone. This isn't like you need a studio.
No, not so just to pick up on a couple of things you said there. First, I'm going to talk about USPs. USPs, everybody loves a USP. What's my USP? USPs 9 times out of 10 are bullshit. Because people, when you talk about USPs, you tend to talk about the features that you have in the product. So you're like, oh, we have, you know, 2,000 maths questions in our platform. That's our USP. Like, yeah, well, my client will just make 2001 questions. Where's the USP now? Like, it's really USP sort of, the tendency is to go down talking about features, and it bothers me because the USP, that's not strong enough, as you say, Chris. And more companies these days are in this position where it's not, oh, this is a cool new thing or something that's going to help us, we're going to implement it. Quite often now, it's an alternative to something they have, especially because of the money problem. So the positioning is so important as to why people need to drop something in favor of your platform. Testimonials, quotes from existing users, that's really high value at the moment. So massively important. Again, if you can get video-based ones, that's really valuable as well. In terms of standing out from the crowd, because these kind of things go hand in hand. Most companies in this sector, when they're talking about marketing, they talk about themselves. And they're like, look at us, look what we're doing, look how great we are. Nobody gives a damn about your products. What they care about is how you can make their life easier. Because inherently, as humans, we're ultimately selfish. Like, we are programmed to think of ourselves first or our children first, and that's it, really. So, but the problem with that is it gives us the we kind of feel like when we're talking, certainly from marketing side, we want to go, our product does this and we do that and we do this really well and it does all these things and blah, blah, blah. It's like, nobody gives a damn. What people care about is, this is the problem that I have and I need it fixed. And I don't really care how it's fixed. I just want it to be fixed. Yeah. And what we need to think about is, how do we position our product so that it talks about the customer and how we make their life better and easier and all the rest. Yeah. That's the big way. And the other big thing that I'd say, there's only two things I'd say stand out is, one, stop talking about yourself, talk about the end user. So go and, what I said earlier, understand that customer persona, really understand them, talk to them and know them. And the other thing I'd say is personality. Put personality in your brand. Stop hiding behind blue and gray logo and put personality in your brand. That's how you stand out. I mean, if you may say things that may rub some people the wrong way, but like we put in, I think it was in the latest newsletter, Chris, about the Marmite. Yeah. It's like, I'd rather be Marmite than margarine. Like margarine's just margarine. I say margarine, and people say lots of like parents are still the only people in the world that buy margarine, but nobody has a strong opinion on it. Marmite, people love, they hate. That's way stronger and way better.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, Brian. We've got a couple of questions have come through. Tom has asked a question which every client has asked since the beginning of Dawn, and it is something that everybody comes up against, which is, how do I get more open and click rates in my emails? How important is the subject line?
Yeah, okay. Big tip for you. Thank you, Chris. Sorry, I just want to interrupt you rudely there to give you a big tip. Right, so I can see that question. Thank you, Tom, for the question. Get more open rates into the reader. Okay, so yes, remember, subject line is for the open rate. Content is the click. So here's a massive tip that you can do. When I mentioned about asking questions earlier, ask, if they're not clicking, if they're not doing what you want, ask them something. So let me say that you solve the three potential things that your products can do. I don't know, what the platform is and so on. Drop them an email that says, in the subject line, something like, can I ask a favor? Okay. And then the content, get rid of all of the nice glossy look and all the rest, and say, hi, first name, I've got a favor to ask. And then ask them, which of the three things below will be most useful to you right now in your school? We're just trying to figure out a few bits and pieces. So that could be things like, if I could wave a magic wand, what could I do for you? Would it be to engage disengaged boys in their reading? Would it be to improve X, or would it be to do Y? I don't know. Just click one of the, you don't need to reply. Just click one of those links, because that'd be really useful for us to know just what it is that would be useful to you. Now, I'm skipping over the technology required in order to do that by a click. But if you can't do it by clicks and tracking, ask them what they want. So ask them what they want. Give them some options. Don't make it open-ended. Don't say, what can I do for you? What do you need? Say, do you want A, B, C, or D, something else? And let them reply to you. That's what I would do. Change up what you're doing. If you're not getting enough replies, not getting enough opens, not getting enough clicks, change it completely. I was once told, don't ask people what apple they want. Ask if they want an apple or an orange first. Like, compare very different things first and foremost.
Good point, Brian. I'd also like to add a couple of practical subject line hints, tips. Emojis get higher open rates in a subject line. What I would suggest to everyone is, if they put the emoji right at the beginning of the subject line, it helps it stand out in an inbox. So find that out, and I'll drop a quick link in the chat, which is a fantastic site to just grab your emojis and paste them into your subject line. Also, if you're using a marketing system, then if you can put hey or hi first name at the beginning after that emoji, personalization often gets higher open rates too. Think about confirmation clauses, think about action-orientated prompts. So literally say in the subject line, open this email to get the resource pack you asked for. Like, be very specific, give it action-orientated, and people will not be able to resist opening up the email.
Great shout. Claire, just to answer your question there, are teachers reluctant to do video testimonials? Some will be, because it's a real life thing. The way that a really good way of doing it is asking them if they can jump on a Zoom call where you can have a chat with them to get a testimonial, to ask them some questions that's recorded. And as it's recorded, then you edit the bits that you need and say, I'd love to use this as part of the testimonial. Is that okay? It's a little less, it's terrifying. They want me to film something. What do I film? And what do I need to say? Jump on a Zoom call, we'll record something for 20 minutes, and we'll have a bit of a chat, and I'll share it with you. If you like it, we can use it. If you don't, that's fine. But I've never had like a school won't let me. I've not had that one, but I have had people say, oh, I'm not ready today.
I think also, Brian, is that teachers are not shy about being on stage per se. They're in front of a crowd all day long every day. What they are sometimes reluctant to do is be the public front of a commercial organization, so to speak. They're reluctant to put themselves forward as someone to go on record to say, I endorse this product, because some teachers can interpret that as shady. It's not, but that doesn't mean that these people that work in the public sector aren't always very, very keen on it. But if you can develop your advocates, and companies that I've worked at in the past work very hard on really looking after key clients and key customers, meet them in person, take them out to dinner, whatever it takes, get them to fall in love with your product, they will usually be much more amenable to going on video. And if that video is less like, we'll come to your school with a film crew, and more like, just can you do as do as a quick loom if you're using your product, or can you do as a quick shout? I'm just going to drop a quick link to a tool called Zencaster in the chat, which is like a video podcasting tool where you can actually send someone a link and it gets high definition one-to-one video recordings of you just chatting to one of your customers, which is there's very simple, cheap ways to use technology to get that out from where they're not having to commit to scripts and film crews and studios and high fidelity cameras and all this kind of stuff. And also that person may be uncomfortable about endorsing a product even if they love it. So, but someone will. There's always people. We always found people.
Yeah, and I think what you make a really good point there as well. Like I said earlier, I would stay away from making it all flashy with big TV production crews and all the rest of it. Literally do it as a Zoom call, or get them to record something on their phone. That sort of organic feel to it just comes across so much better. And there's so many companies like, oh, but we want this all glossy and looking like X. Yeah, but your readers don't. Like, your audience wants to hear from real live people. It doesn't like it's actors. So, yeah. Cool. Chris, is there anything else, or are we?
No, we're at the hour now, so we've
Excellent.
gone slightly more.
I've gone slightly over. Sorry, everybody. Well, look, thank you all so much for signing up and for attending. There was a question about the attendance. I think we had like 34, 35 people that had registered, and 31 at the highest point had turned up, something like that. So, but we don't take our stats for typical, though. That's the key thing. We do it in a very different way with a very, very, very targeted audience, the very real life problem. Like, how do we get into schools? It's impossible. So ours are slightly different. So that 40% thing is the thing I would stick to, basically. Thank you all so much for your time. Much appreciated. We will drop through an email later with some links and things on there. I'm sure we can do that, Chris, maybe let's stay up tomorrow. But anyway, we'll get an email over to you guys with everything on there. If anyone has any questions, do for free. You can always reach out to me or Chris. Do go book a growth strategy call. And if you haven't, sign up to the 10 newsletter, because it's awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a lovely day, lovely evening, and hopefully see you all soon. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Chris.
Goodbye. Bye-bye.